So here we are again, and for the people that are new here, this is a Bob the Builder series where I talk about little dioramas or projects that I'm working on in regards to my display and give a little explanation as to it and perhaps some things I learned along the way or whatever. For the full tutorials, they're on Patreon, so I might end up referencing that. The Patreon link is in the bio if you're interested. We do one a month there, by the way. So this is a compilation of 3 different videos broken down into the build, which I'm working on now, and then the painting of the background and the painting of the base. It was a very easy build, and as you saw in the title, it's the Golden Lagoon. So this whole thing is really becoming a learning process for me in regards to what makes the display successful. These transformer dioramas, for the most part, not that I'm the best at it, but I can make better looking dioramas. The problem with transformers is that they're so big, yet they're not big enough, in my opinion, to properly occupy a DTOF, that you have to make a simpler diorama in order to give space, because the worst thing you can do is make the shelf look crowded. So I've been going through the episodes and trying to find environments that I can manipulate and leave kind of open for the most part, because that seems to be what works. Now, the last one I did was the oil rig, and I wasn't super happy with it when I was finished. And this one I am more happy with and have grown to appreciate more as I've spent more time with it. But after this, I get to some good stuff, the next 2 that I did. And that being said, a lot of this has been a learning curve in regards to different techniques. Like, I'm nowhere near a master of my craft at this at all. I'm sort of messing around. But like the challenge that this one presented was creating a realistic background. Like, I had to really put my Bob Ross hat on, or perhaps even Alex Ross hat on, and really give a go at some of these environments in order to make it look believable. And to be fair, it's probably the thing I'm most happy with about it after it's all said and done. The smoke is cleared and it's 7 p.m. and the rubbers met the road and all that kind of stuff. I think the background did turn out nice. And, I ended up using a lot of different kind of disciplines and stuff that I have picked up along the way in order to achieve it. I'm a firm believer in putting these transformers in realistic Earth type backgrounds and not so much the super Cybertronian backgrounds. I just think that with especially the angle of a lot of these new releases being hyper toon, when you start putting them in the toon environment, it makes them look even cheaper, which I feel like a lot of the hyper toon ones end up looking cheap, even though they may not feel cheap. Like, they might be beautifully built and put together and all that. That simple look detracts from it. So then putting them in, just a plain purple background or a plain orange background doesn't really appeal to me. So I've been trying to find it, and I'm not sure if the challenge has been worth it, honestly, but I know that I've been giving it a full effort in trying to find what works, and I've had moderate success in some that I'm more happy with than others, but I keep learning different things as in regards to what works and what doesn't. It's interesting because, I did these videos so long ago that it's the middle of February now and it's like 17 degrees outside. And when I'm painting this background, it's like obviously summer and I'm in shorts and a t-shirt. So this has been, a long time in the works. But I forget where I was, but, the background painting here was the most challenging in regards to my skill level, but I kind of just picked up a couple things and I think I watched a couple Bob Ross videos, and I know I didn't need to do it. Like, the thing about a diorama, in my opinion, is it should be like the soundtrack to a movie. Like, you shouldn't necessarily notice it. It just should make the figures display well, and it should provide some sort of an ambiance. But if you're looking at the diorama and not looking at the figures, then you've failed. And if you're just focusing on the figures and not noticing the diorama, you kind of failed. Like, the goal is to kind of take in the entire thing as one viewing. You're looking at the figures, you're looking at the background, you're looking at the props, you're looking at the lighting, you're looking at all of it as if it is one purposefully done thing, as opposed to this ensemble of things that you try to do in order to make it look dynamic. And I think that, and I'm not just shooting myself some bail for no reason, okay? I'm being honest, but I think the fact that I didn't go out of my way to have super detailed mountains, I just kind of threw in some highlights, threw in some shadows kind of roughly, and then threw in these trees, that it didn't become distracting. It's not too busy, and it's not too detailed, and it's just kind of enough to make it work. And I am still, honestly, to this day, super satisfied with the background. Unfortunately, it's all the Coneheads and Astrotrain and Blitzwing that are occupying the space. So I couldn't, that you don't get to see much of the background because those figures are so big, which is another thing that I've learned in this process. It's something I've picked up on this one. A lot of people have said, well, why didn't you do this for the beachcomber shelf or whatever? And it's because, the Seekers, the Coneheads did get involved in the Golden Lagoon too, but it's more so about, creating the logistic space for it to work. You can have like just this plain green grass. I'll get back to it in a second. I just want you to take a minute and look at that background. Like, I'm happy with that. Like, and it's not perfect. And the trees are maybe a little skinny where it looks a little swampy instead of foresty. But overall, I think it sells it. I'm quite happy and satisfied with the way that turned out. And the reason why the lower part isn't painted is because there's layers of styrofoam going in for the floor, and that's what's going to make up that element of it. So it wasn't really a big deal. Yeah, no issues here, honestly. Let's see, I was going to get back to it. Oh yeah, so the thing about the foreground, or the base of it, which is what we're working on here, and as you see, I put my wife to work. She's been a trooper with all this stuff, and it's something that we work on together, so that's been cool too. A little family time. Sometimes the kids get involved and all sorts of stuff. So, but the thing is I needed to create the base of this thing. Logistically is the most important, because that's where you're breaking up the space to have the figures, and you want to make sure that they're on different levels so that some pop out, and you want to make sure that each one kind of gets their own sort of individual space to shine. All of that stuff becomes super important in regards to making the diorama sell the look of the figures. So the Golden Lagoon was just the perfect opportunity to take a few characters that were involved in that scene, but also display really large characters on multiple levels in a wide open space that still was somewhat interesting to look at. Getting back to the different disciplines, like the background painting, the little kind of environment effects on here, and how I went about doing that in different ways, using paints or glues or whatever. In addition to some of the clay work that I do here shortly. Like, that's just another example of kind of you just gather different skills and techniques every time you do it. And I say this all the time, but this stuff is not a matter of talent. Now, if you have some artistic talent, or you have a lot of artistic talent, it's going to help further what you do. But you can make something that's super presentable and have no talent, because you can pull out technique, and if you learn the technique, you can make something look good. And also a matter of creativity. I think the creativity is more important, per se, than the talent. Here's that clay I was talking about, and it's just. But every little diorama I've done, I've picked up different skills while working specifically on that diorama. This particular one utilized some environment skills, some clay skills, some background skills, some nunchuck skills, some bow staff fighting skills, etc. So by using those different sort of disciplines, I was able to kind of make something that is presentable. When I finished this, and I posted the video just recently on Patreon, the final video, I wasn't super happy with it. But over time, looking at it, like it does do the trick. And I think coming off of the oil rig one, I was just in a slump, but it's not distracting. I do feel like the Golden Lagoon is not really, it doesn't sell it quite enough. Like I still have to tell people what it is, but once I tell people, they kind of get it. The problem is, once again, these figures are huge, and I needed to create the space for them to have in order to kind of stand and for the diorama to be useful. Because once again, I spent money on these figures, not so much on the foam. So the foam needs to work for the figures, not the other way around. But overall, I am happy with it. I do think it works. I do think it's effective, and it does help display really big figures. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.